Greetings. This message coming from the Recovery Room of Racism Non-Anonymous today is intended to expose some of the faulty, fucked up, jacked up, hypocritical, unethical, possibly, behaviors of one sort of, I don't know, individual or group in particular. Well, no, two. Yeah, things are always so interconnected. So it's intended to expose some jacked up behaviors, and it is intended to further expose the signs, symptoms, and solutions to trauma and traumatic stress, to show how it works, so that you know now how it works, and the experience or example from my life that I intend to use will in fact expose behaviors of others who were very actively a part of the experience. So, where do I start? As I've been thinking and working this morning, my mind began to meditate on recent experiences. One of the last conferences. As a matter of fact, it was the last conference that I attended in my profession while actively employed at my last plantation station, Horizon House Incorporated here in Philadelphia. This last conference that I was able to attend, and for which I had to fight for, and that's part of a broader story, how I even got to go to the conference finally. It was a conference on trauma. The presenters were a male and a female who are an active part of Dr. Sandra Bloom's team. Now, well, I have Sandra Bloom. Creating Sanctuary is the name of the book. That's it. They are part of her team. Sandra Bloom developed the Sanctuary model for recognizing and treating trauma and traumatic stress. She is a traumatologist here in Philadelphia. I first became aware of Dr. Sandra Bloom when she worked with her then partner, Dr. Linda Bills, back in around 96-ish or 7-ish sometime, That's kind of vague right there, but sometime around then. And for me, it was as a patient in the hospital on the sanctuary unit, as it was called. So that was my introduction to her and her work in understanding trauma and traumatic stress, and beginning the process for myself of healing and recovering. So the last conference, which was in October of 2010, it was a 2-day conference up at my what do they call it? My alma mater, I don't know, my graduate school alma mater, Bryn Mawr, is where the conference was held. And my mind began to think on what was said and done, what I did and said, how I was feeling. I could remember, it very well, very clearly, and the feelings and the thoughts and the responses to me from her team, particularly the white man. During the course of that conference, I verbalized the thoughts and the intensity of the feelings that I had in relation to what I was hearing. Excuse me, how it was going down. And in so doing, I do display some of the symptoms of being in a very highly traumatized state. In particular, in October 2010, I was in a very active, traumatized state because I was in a situation where I was being actively abused and harmed on that plantation station. And it was active, it was intentional, it was conspiratorial, and the people who had a duty and an ability to respond to it failed to do so in my behalf. So I was experiencing a tremendous amount of stress, traumatic stress, in October of 2010. And coupled with what I know about trauma, traumatology, and in particular how it relates to people of African descent. One of the things when I attend those conferences with Dr. Bloom and them that always raises my ire is the fact that they talk about the programs that they are doing with the young folks in the hood in particular, in terms of assisting them and teaching them and so forth. Now, that creates huge conflict when you understand trauma, traumatic stress, what it is, how it works, and in particular, how it works and what it looks like in the lives of African descendants in their relationship with European descendants. European descendants being the perpetrators and or the stressors for us as a collective, and we haven't been victimized at their hands and out of their minds. Then you know, so that's that. And so how my mind, as I'm sitting here working, just begin to think about and recall that event at the conference and how he suggested that, well, he labeled the sign or the symptom that I was displaying without it being in a very indirect way. So I shared what I shared, and I was feeling very angry and hurt at the time, and very frustrated, and so that came across clear in what I said as well as how I said it. And his response was to sort of turn to the group, and we kind of thought about it, and then, to the group, what he says to us all, the group and myself included, well, he pointed out rage and what happens when people get to the state or stage of being enraged in their situation, and how when they're in that state, they become impotent. And I recognized my level of impotency in that I have been unable to access the resources of support that I need. It's almost like I haven't been able to get people to help me, assist me. Impotent. I'm not able to perform. And the performance that I'm seeking to do is to be actively engaged with others, sharing, teaching, building, and that's not happening. And, when a person has been victimized, the impotency also shows up in that they are unable to obtain assistance, to get people to hear their story and to come to their aid. Impotent. On a professional level, for me, what that also signaled is that from a professional standpoint, I will not get the support of my colleagues and peers professionally. To tell the story that I'm working to tell, which is the story of the voices in the margins, what's happening to the people, those who are surviving in economic, cultural, spiritual poverty, the people that we serve, the consumers that we sign on to assist them. They have histories fraught with trauma and traumatic stress on every level of lived experience. Let me show you these levels of lived experience. This would be a good time to show you that. A pole, Abinah's paradigm of lived experience. See, but professionally, if I had the assistance that I needed from a professional stance, I would be able to have put these theories and paradigm and things together for you in a way where it is much more clear, coherent, and the like. So let's see how close can we get that. Societal or spiritual universals first, societal, communal, family, and individual. A pole, Abinah's paradigm of lived experiences. So I know that you can't see some of the things that I have written in, but this is part of my process of documenting the knowledge and information that I have acquired. And from a professional standpoint, as I said, Dr. Bloom, I learned a lot from early on. Now, that was my introduction to Dr. Bloom, was in the hospital and her work. And then, because after I got out of the hospital, I went back to school, as I got well and got better and got clearer about my life and who I was and what I wanted to do, I began to go forward with doing it.